Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive where we're gonna amp up your vocabulary
Okay.
with some really cool words and phrases.
All right.
So imagine you're in a meeting, giving a presentation, or even just chatting with friends.
Right.
Wouldn't it be awesome to just effortlessly slip in some sophisticated vocabulary or a really clever idiom?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be focusing on today. We're going to be mastering, albeit and facetious. And we'll be understanding how to wrap your head around something or play by ear.
Those are great choices. They're really good for kind of elevating your communication.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether you're writing or presenting or just in casual conversation.
Okay, so first up we have albeit.
I have to admit, the first time I saw this word, I thought it was something straight out of like a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah, it does have that kind of formal,
Yeah.
almost literary feel to it.
Yeah.
You might encounter it in academic writing or even a legal document.
Right. But what's interesting is it's simply a more sophisticated way of saying although.
Oh.
It's like although, but it's all dressed up for a fancy dinner party.
Okay, so instead of saying the hike was tough, although the views were amazing,
Right.
you could say the hike was tough, albeit with breathtaking views.
Exactly.
It adds a certain elegance to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of subtly emphasizes that contrast a little bit more. It's like saying, yes, this is true, but don't overlook this other important point.
Yeah, I like that.
And if you really want to impress someone, you can mention that albeit actually comes from a shortened version of albeit,
Right.
meaning although it be that.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is.
So we're using a word that's been around for centuries.
Yes.
It's like a little window into the history of the English language.
Exactly. And now let's move on to our first idiom of the day. Wrap your head around.
Okay.
It's something we've all probably experienced at some point. Have you ever been presented with a new concept that was really difficult to grasp?
Oh, absolutely. It's like that feeling of your brain trying to stretch and contort itself
Right.
to understand something new and complex.
Precisely think about tackling a new scientific theory.
Yeah.
Or trying to understand a complex philosophical argument.
Right.
That mental wrestling match that's wrapping your head around it.
I see.
It's about grappling with a concept until you can finally make sense of it.
The source mentioned struggling to understand a challenging mathematical problem.
Yes.
So imagine trying to solve a really difficult equation.
Yeah.
And you can almost visualize your brain trying to wrap itself
Right.
around those numbers and symbols.
It's a great way to remember what the idiom means.
I like that.
And it highlights the mental effort involved in truly understanding something new and complex.
Yeah.
It's not about passively absorbing information. It's about actively engaging with it,
Right.
turning it over in your mind until it clicks.
It's like a mental workout, flexing those cognitive muscles.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, let's shift gears to play it by ear.
Okay.
This idiom is all about flexibility and adaptability.
Yeah.
What do you think of when you hear that phrase?
It brings to mind a sense of spontaneity and responsiveness, being open to possibilities, and kind of adjusting your approach as the situation unfolds rather than just rigidly adhering to a preset plan.
Yes. It's like when you're planning a road trip, but you don't book any accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
You're open to detours, unexpected discoveries.
Yeah.
Making decisions on the fly.
Yeah.
You're embracing the adventure
Yeah.
of the unknown.
And what's really fascinating is that this idiom actually originated
Wow.
in the world of music.
Really?
Musicians who play by ear, they don't rely on sheet music.
Oh.
They listen, they feel the music, and they respond in real time, improvising and creating something beautiful in the moment.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It adds a whole new layer of meaning to the idiom. It's about trusting your instincts, being present in the moment, and just being open to the creative possibilities that emerge when you let go of those rigid expectations.
It's a valuable mindset to cultivate, not just in music, but in life in general.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered two fantastic words and phrases so far, but we're not done yet. Let's move on to facetious.
All right.
This word is particularly interesting because it involves navigating that kind of tricky world of humor.
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered someone who is being facetious?
Yeah, it's a type of humor that can be quite subtle
Right.
and sometimes even misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Facetious refers to a remark that's intended to be humorous but might not be appropriate for the context.
Yeah.
It's often playful, even a bit sarcastic, and can sometimes come across as flippant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source gives a great example. His facetious remark lightened the mood, albeit unexpectedly.
Right.
So you can see how a facetious comment can be both funny
Yeah.
and potentially awkward.
Yeah, and it highlights the importance of reading the room and understanding those social cues.
Right.
A well-timed facetious remark can diffuse tension
Yeah.
or add a touch of levity to a conversation.
Uh,
But a poorly timed one can come across as insensitive or even offensive.
it's like that feeling when you're watching a comedian
Uh-huh.
and they make a joke that's funny but makes you cringe a little at the same time.
Yes, and that's what makes facetious so interesting.
Right.
It challenges us to think about the nuances of humor
Yeah.
and how it can be both a powerful tool for connection and a potential source of misunderstanding.
It makes you really think about how you use humor.
Right.
I'm definitely going to be more aware of how I use humor from now on.
Yeah.
But before we get too serious, let's recap what we've covered so far in this linguistic adventure.
Okay, so we began with albeit,
Yeah.
which adds a touch of elegance and subtle contrast to our writing and speech.
Right. Then we explored the mental challenge of wrapping our heads around
Yeah.
complex concepts. And we discover the joy of playing it by ear,
Right.
embracing flexibility and spontaneity in our approach to life.
Yes.
And finally, we delved into the complexities of facetious humor,
Mm-hmm.
reminding ourselves that timing and context are everything.
Exactly.
This has been a great start to our deep dive,
Yeah, I agree.
and I'm excited to explore even more linguistic gems with you
Yeah.
in part 2.
I'm looking forward to it. So ready to kind of continue our exploration of powerful language.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still thinking about facetious and how it can add humor, but also requires that sensitivity
Right.
to the situation.
It's a great example of how words can have those multiple layers of meaning and how our communication choices can really have an impact on others.
It makes you realize that language isn't just about conveying information.
Right.
It's also about building relationships and
Yeah.
navigating those social dynamics.
Exactly. And speaking of navigating social dynamics,
Right.
I think it's worth revisiting the idea of idioms. Remember, idioms are those kind of quirky phrases that often have those figurative meanings that go beyond the literal words themselves.
Right. We already tackled wrap your head around and play it by ear.
Yeah.
But there's a whole universe of idioms out there
There is.
just waiting to be explored.
And what's so fascinating about idioms is that they often reflect a culture's values,
Right.
history, and even their sense of humor.
I love that. It's like each language has its own secret code.
Yeah.
And once you crack that code, you unlock a deeper understanding of the people and their culture.
Precisely. For example, have you ever heard the idiom to kick the bucket?
Of course, it means to die, right?
That's right. But the origin of that phrase is actually quite interesting. It's believed to have come from a practice where people who were about to be hanged would stand on an overturned bucket.
Oh, wow.
When they were ready, they would kick the bucket away,
Oh,
leading to their death.
I had no idea. It's amazing how these seemingly random phrases have such rich historical roots.
It is. It's like a linguistic detective game, uncovering the hidden stories behind the words we use every day.
And I think that's what makes learning about language so engaging. It's not just about memorizing definitions.
Right.
It's about understanding those connections between words, culture, and history.
Absolutely. And as you continue your language journey, I encourage you to pay attention to the idioms you encounter. Try to decipher their meanings, research their origins, and even consider how they might be used differently in other cultures.
It's like adding a whole new dimension to your vocabulary.
Yes.
Instead of just knowing what words mean,
Yeah.
you start to understand how they work, how they evoke imagery,
Yeah.
and how they connect us to the past.
It's like becoming fluent in not just the language itself, but also the cultural tapestry that's woven into it.
I love that analogy. So if idioms are like threads in a cultural tapestry,
Right.
what other linguistic elements kind of contribute to the richness of language?
Well, one element that comes to mind is the use of metaphors and similes. These figures of speech allow us to create vivid imagery and make comparisons that can really deepen our understanding of a concept.
Right. A metaphor is a figure of speech that directly compares two things that are seemingly unrelated.
Yeah.
For example, you might say, life is a journey.
Exactly. And a simile is similar,
Yeah.
but it uses words like or as to make that comparison.
Okay.
For example, he was as brave as a lion.
Gotcha. Both metaphors and similes help us to understand abstract ideas by relating them to something more concrete and familiar.
They do. They add a layer of depth and meaning to our communication,
Right.
allowing us to express complex emotions and ideas in a way that really resonates with others.
Think about how much richer our language would be if we only used literal language. It would be like looking at a black and white photograph
Right.
instead of a vibrant painting.
Exactly. Metaphors and similes are like the colors and brushstrokes that bring our language to life.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to notice metaphors and similes everywhere, and it's making me appreciate language on a whole new level.
And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Once you start paying attention, you'll realize that language is full of hidden